Okay, hi, ladies and gentlemen. It's me, Jack, with the Socialyetdistanced podcast, and we are having a great afternoon today already with my friend Christian Alvarez. Christian's a desert rat, and we'll let him tell you all about that. I could go on and on about our personal relationship and about our intertwinings with writing and arts and finer crafts like cooking and things like that. He's kind of a romance guy. And I think that you'll enjoy our afternoon together, enjoy his work, and we're just going to shoot the breeze, so I hope you guys enjoy. Good afternoon, Chris.
Hey, good to see you.
Thanks for coming, brother. I appreciate you being here. And, you know, we've known each other a long time, and I hope that, you know, you feel as connected to me as I do to you, simply for no other reason than the fact that we've been connected for so long. And the days that those of us in the audience might remember of Blog Talk Radio and the War Radio channel when we were doing the war thing, writing.
Oh yeah.
What was that? Writing against some, I forget. But anyway, good old days. And you know, we've been poetizing and writing and talking about music and all kind of things for a long time. So it's just a pleasure to have you here, brother, and even better pleasure to talk to you. So
pleasure to be here. Pleasure to see you.
We'll share with the world. So tell us, Chris, where are you now and what's going on in your life now? And then we'll walk kind of backwards through the history a little bit.
Sure.
If that works.
I've been in Northern California, like Sacramento area, for, I guess, since about 2014. Basically, in a nutshell, a gigantic nutshell, I guess, when at some point in the desert scene, I ended up in Arizona for a hot minute and was at the end of my alcoholic addict rope and found myself like loaded at an AA meeting with a friend that was putting me up for the night, which God bless her. And then I got a hold of a family member and said I wanted to go to a rehab and I didn't really have anywhere else to go. And she said, come up to Sacramento, which was interesting because my mom, who was suffering from aphasia at the time, she was in a memory care facility out here. And my dad, who I kind of been taking care of both of them off and on for the better part of 10 years, but he ended up in Tracy, kind of down the road at a family member's house, and they were about to throw him out anyway. So he ended up in a retirement home, and we all ended up in the same area. And I grew up around basically just them, so it kind of worked out. And the universe finds a way. So yeah. I end up out here, and I remember getting on this bus, and I got a Greyhound out here, and I had a couple bottles of Gatorade, like half full of vodka, and I had some heroin on me, and I was going to rehab. And my aunt who was, you know, I thought I was coming up here and I was going to figure it out, basically, you know. And when I got here, or on the way, she said, oh yeah, I found a place for you. And I was thinking, well, I was going to find a place, you know, and right. And, you know, and she said, no, we're taking you from the bus there, you know. And she said, you only had to be clean for 3 days or something. And I'm like, whatever, you know. So I landed, I go there, and then I ended up going over to a different facility afterwards because I didn't want to bug her. I did my time at the rehab. It was going great, but I didn't know what I was going to do after that. And all of a sudden I'm in Sacramento. I've got some family here, but I don't know what's going on. And I went to this Mather program, which was a year, and it was a former Air Force base that they basically had classes and job training and all kinds of stuff. It's just a blessing out of nowhere. And so I went through their culinary program. I just really went for it and started running meetings and sponsoring people and just doing the whole thing I was supposed to be doing. And I started doing dishes at one of the better restaurants in town and making my way up there and working at another place at the same time, just kind of grinding in that regards. And that kind of, it put a little bit of a halt on the writing because, I'd been doing it one way for so long that I didn't really know how to art clean,
I understand.
I didn't know how to do anything clean, but I had to kind of realize that the substances were a catalyst for, it wasn't somebody else doing it. It was me doing all that shit, the bad and the good. So I had to realize that and kind of resharpen those tools and just practice more and get back into writing every day or whatevering every day, because nothing's easy.
Right.
And
in the grand scheme of things, the writing is a symptom of showing that you're actually getting better. I found that as I was able to get closer and closer to things that were more creative or more emotional, more sensitive, I was able to compute those things through my little puny brain, in ways that I wasn't able to. So, I think that there's some applause there for the whole process itself, that, because the results do happen if you follow the directions. It's, as a chef, that, if I want to cook exactly what you cooked, I got to follow your exact recipe. If I add this or add that, I'm not cooking the same thing.
Yep, sure.
And that's what I personally feel happens in the program, is it gets watered down, or the message gets twisted, or it becomes about something else that's not self-focused to the point of putting the Band-Aid on so that you can go on about doing your job, which is being of service to God and other people.
Yeah, I saw a thing of Bill Wilson that said, it's great that people go to 37 meetings in a month. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but, it's great that you're sponsoring 85 people and,
right,
doing all these things. He wouldn't, obviously, there weren't sponsors in, but he was saying that basically, like, the idea was to get people back into society and, like becoming a creative, like we're saying, or, important.
Or just able to go to a freaking insurance job, whatever,
Part of their family, part of their friend group.
Lifting the veil, man,
Yeah.
Because the lie, you go and you make amends and you apologize and you try to change your behavior. But, I walk in and I say, I'm sorry. It's like, yeah, we know you're sorry as hell,
Yeah. You ever listen to Bob D?
I'm familiar, but no, I don't. Joe and Charlie are my big gurus, man, because they know the big book like the back of my hand, and they know, how it was designed to work, because they're old enough to have been around. And, and I think the thing that sticks out more than anything else in my whole recovery was I went to a meeting and there was this lady who was about 90 something, and she was like the third woman who was ever in AA ever.
Wow.
And somebody asked her, well, what do you do in times of trouble? And she said, I normally I'll just take have a prayer, And she says, well, what do you normally ask for? She says, it's really simple, honey. She says, help!
That's hilarious.
And that's what I think what makes it work is, that becoming aware of my own is what makes me able to see it and enjoy it. And some people find, I won't say this for everybody, but once that veil is lifted a little bit, you're able to see it a little bit more clearly. The talent of being able to write is always there. You've got that, or else you just wouldn't have it, It might come in other forms, but I just, the whole process, and, I was somewhat aware that you and some of our other friends were going through processes like these. And I remember, it made me really happy because, Chris, I had a halfway house that I started myself with almost almost 5 years I worked in the field, and 85 people went through those doors. They were the ones who were, they fell through the cracks. They were the ones getting out of jail. They were the ones getting evicted from, the VA hospital. They were the pregnant postpartum chicks, chicks, that got me really far in my business, didn't it?
Right.
But, it was a mixed population. There were some kids around. It was a family, because that's the way the world was. And I think what I was doing was a little bit unique and a little bit scary to my neighbors, but it worked. And you have to have that security, and having that family around is a very important thing. And that comes at many, many different levels. And most of the people I've dealt with didn't have that secondary level of family like you do, because those guys all went to the high-end treatment centers and the Sierra Tucson's and Hazelden's and places like that, and then went and stayed in a halfway house for a year, and it just, that was no longer becoming practical, and it wasn't really working because it wasn't accessible. So
there's so many shades of person in that, and like you're saying, because I was lucky enough to, well, that sounds odd, but I went to a program in the desert that was basically all guys that came from court, like thuggish, if you will, that came from court. And I was the only one that walked into the place and was like, I need help. And then this other guy dropped his 18-year-old son off for weed, and he had to go, he volunteered also, but everybody else, they were getting out of something, and the next place I went to, like the one that my aunt helped me with, it was nice. It was super nice. I mean, not nice like Hazelton-y type whatnot. It wasn't Betty Ford, but it wasn't the first place. Right. And then moving on to the year program, that was where I walked in the doors, and there was like, because this is a former Air Force base, there's 1,000 people on this campus of various nature. There's permanently housed vets, there's a whole veteran program, there's a whole family side, moms, dads, kids, there's an emancipated kids side, and then there's the single side, which, so, I'm in this room with like hundreds of people, and it's almost Christmas, so the case managers are wearing little elf hats and stuff, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here, And I thought, well, I just need to start shaking hands and hugging people and figuring this crap out, because I'm here, so I'm not that, I'm in my head, I'm like, oh, where am I? It's like, no, you're this, so like, get used to it, but since I've come back and started cooking there, it's like you said, I've seen so many different people in for so many different reasons. And when it comes to the homelessness aspect, there's people that their house burned down. That was it. There's people that have been enabled into the situation. They say, I don't know how to do that, and someone else did it for so long, and then that person passed away or whatever, and now they still don't know how to do it, and they're there. There's just so many, it's amazing. But like I said, there's not a lot of places like it. And we have a pretty decent success rate of getting people housing, but the homeless epidemic has caught up in droves to the point where it's ridiculous.
Well, and I can only imagine, because I haven't seen it at that scale, but the whole reason I left the business was because, as a halfway house, we stayed open as long as we could, and there were some nefarious people involved in the business side of things that really kind of screwed us over. But I had an obligation to the people that I was housing at that point. So when we had two buildings, and when the first building, when the first location got in trouble, I downsized to another location, and that was a mistake. That's where, I pushed it farther than it should have gone, because I did everything to save, building number one, and in the meanwhile, when building number two was the opportunity, there was nothing left, and I built the kind of place that you're describing is what I wanted. The people came in, there was a morning meeting if you wanted to attend, but everybody was required to go out and work somewhere and pay a a portion, if not, I mean, I get some subsidies from the government for each one of them, and for their food only, not for their treatment or anything else, and or their housing. So they were responsible. They would go out and work, come in, and the only requirement was that you had to be home for dinner and attend the meeting at night, you know. And
yeah, COVID kind of took out a bunch of those. There was the whole pile of houses out here that were like that, and they had invested in a bunch of properties, I guess, right when COVID hit. So by the time COVID was done spinning around, they lost everything. But yeah, man, and like you said, there are a lot of nefarious people in that that type of recovery house situation.
Well,
and
I'll give you an example.
A lot of money making.
The first building I rented was I think it was 13,000 square foot ex-nursing home. And the guy that owned it had filled it with furniture and then shut down for 3 years. And it was simply a tax write-off for him. That's why there was all new furniture in there. So when we came along wanting to rent the building, there's a 3-year limit. You can only take a tax break for like that for 3 years in a row. When I approached him to rent the building, was at the 3rd year. So we got to rent, we signed the lease, and you know, we had certain responsibilities, they had certain responsibilities. They never took care of theirs. They you know, reneged on their end of the bargain to the point that we ended up getting evicted because we couldn't generate enough revenue. Because you know, and so they basically forced us out. And then once they had rented the building, you know, that starts the clock again. They get another 3 years of write-off. Meanwhile, the fire chief, who is responsible for giving the certificate of occupancy, is cutting a back deal room with the guy who owns the halfway house. And now, you know, after all said and done with that whole thing, now the brand new fire center for the, you know, Tri-County area in Georgia where I live, the big firehouse where all the fire trucks are and the maintenance and all that shit, lives on the property where my halfway house was.
We're kind of. I mean, there's monkeys running the zoo everywhere, but at the same time, like we got goodwill, but then the county, and then the state. So technically, there's a lot of people looking over what's going on, and they're all protecting their own interests. So they do a bid every so often to see who's going to actually be the face of it. You know, be it Goodwill or Volunteers America, whoever the hell. But we're up for bid right now. A couple of years ago, we went up for bid, and we all had to go get second jobs because we weren't sure if they were going to carry us over, and they were firing people left and right. But they ended up sending us over to the next company. You know, but you never people, man. You never.
Well, you know, I think what's important, I mean, that's exactly what it is. I mean, people who have been on the street or, you know, gone through their addictions or whatnot, we have a tendency to see things a little bit differently. And if you get a hold of it, you can rocket yourself into a lot of different places. And you know, I've watched you do that yourself, and I'd like to hear a little bit about how, you know, through that timeline, what happens then. You know, Chris is all set with his recoveries on flow, and you're getting your life together, and you're doing your volunteering, you're doing your work, and all the stuff that you're supposed to do. What happens at that point? How does that become a career? How does that fit in with the art? You know, I know, you know, clearly about your feelings and relationships with your parents, especially in family, and how all of those things kind of play a part in your life. And, you know, I think all of those things are really important, Chris. So let's hear the rest of the story.
Well, let's see. So right around, I guess, like I said, the universe kind of put it to where I was close to everybody. But I don't know. Sometimes I think, you know, if I would have won the lottery at some point, I'd definitely be dead type situation. So
me too.
You know, sometimes you wonder, like, why am I only in X and Y situation? Well, duh, you know. So being in that situation in the shelter, having the opportunity to rebuild and whatnot, and luckily, I could go and see my mom while she was in the memory care facility, because her frontal lobe was disappearing, from the aphasia. And last time I'd seen her, I was trying to take care of her in Arizona, and she was putting the ketchup in the freezer and was getting lost if she went outside because they changed the street signs and her, all kinds of stuff. It was bad. It was like dementia with Alzheimer's dancing on it, and, so basically, she was 60s, so, luckily I could go see her, and at first she didn't even think I was there. My aunt told her, "Christian's here," and she said, "No, he's not," and that was when she was still verbal. But
Right.
the point is, I got to tell her everything I was doing, and if all this was just for that, the cooking and all that was just for that, it was huge, because when I was growing up, she was the head chef at a high school, and they fed 3,500 kids a day, and
Wow.
2 breakfasts, 2 lunches, and when I was sick, she'd take me down there and throw me in her office, and these giant women would come in and hand me orange juice boxes and stuff, and, rub me and be like, "You're my kid," and da-da-da. I'm just like, what's going on? She'd always have these stories about these kids that she was helping out, and how, whoever couldn't afford their meals, so he's working them off in the kitchen, and then she ended up making a catering company with these kids and had them working at night and got them outfits and would go do catering out of the high school with these kids. And she hired a bunch of the mentally handicapped kids and the handicapped kids, and she just was doing it, So when she passed, not only did I get to tell her what was happening, but so I'm working with these people, and it's kind of the same thing. It's crazy. So when she passed, I called the high school and told them, "Hey, I don't know if you remember Catherine Alvarez," and they said, "Oh, that was a little before my time, but we know of her and stuff." And I said, "Well," kind of explained it a little bit, and the lady said, "You know what?" And she got off the phone, and then she came back. She told me that 2 of the kids that were handicapped that my mom hired when they were 18 out of high school were still there, working.
Wow.
Like full career 20 years later, and so that was just interesting. And having been a drinking buddy with my dad and taking care of him during his diabetic stuff and everything, and then him taking care of me through all that crap too, but having him come to the restaurant I was working at and like footing the bill before he realized what was going on, and just they got to see the full circle and got to see me get back on my feet a little bit, and it meant a lot, because in recovery they say it's not always about what you did, a lot of it's about what you didn't do, and for somebody mentioning, like, you ever think about how your family felt while worried about you and
Right.
stuff when you were younger and whatnot. And it just, I know a lot of people that haven't had that opportunity, they still have some unclosed, business and whatnot. It's never perfect or anything, but it's interesting because when my dad passed, he used to always, when I was little, he'd always say, like, keep an eye on the ground, you'll find stuff, and he found a ring, he found like 20s, he'd find $100 bill, he'd find all this stuff. And I'd always find like a stick or a penny or what, a rock or whatever. And I'm like, this, okay. But I'd forgotten all about that. But when he passed, we went to his memorial, and afterwards we were at this little strip mall, and I got out of the car and I was thinking, I was thinking about that. And I looked down and the car was surrounded with pennies. I saw, and I thought, oh wow, pennies from heaven, whatever. So ever since then I started looking for them, and it's crazy because I kid you not, there's literally under the table there was a penny. But ever since I've found more pennies than are probably in circulation because I walk to work, so I find pennies all the time. And then when my mom passed, I thought, oh, this has been, wishful thinking. Like, what? Now I need to find something else. Well, I literally started finding dimes, like all the time. So I find pennies and dimes all the time, and it's regardless of it being wishful thinking, it's like part of my morning routine when I'm walking to work to get back into a better headspace. Is I do my prayers and whatnot, but I tend to try to connect with all those people, like the David Parhams and the Jimmys and people I knew or didn't know or whatever. Just kind of open up a thought process towards family members, and being in recovery, having lost a ton of different people, but just getting old and having lost a ton of different people, just getting in touch with the universe a little bit and saying some thank yous and things like that. Think about it. Basically, getting back to the story, like after they had passed, luckily I was in a safe place. I was still, surrounded by people in recovery, and I had a lot of responsibilities and I had momentum. I was running a lot of meetings, and I was sponsoring guys, and I was working 2 jobs and the whole thing. So I was busy, maybe too busy to focus on writing or music or anything like that, but I was busy enough in a good way to keep me responsible. And I guess I'd started doing dishes at a place, and then I'd worked my way up there, and then I had an unfortunate incident with the chef, who's one of the best chefs in town, that decided I used the wrong piece of chicken and punched me in the back while I was leaning over some fire. So
and you walked away. You had a cleaver in your hand and you walked away. So that's progress, my friend.
Yeah, basically. I called another. It was a really super abusive kitchen, but I thought that's the way it was supposed to be.
Right.
I'd watched way too much Gordon Ramsay or something, but I thought that's how it was. So I had called a guy that had worked there before and was gone, and I told him, like, I think I'm going to quit. And he said, oh, why? I said, I don't think I should be wearing this chef coat and stuff. Like, I don't think I can do this. Like, I'm a big fuck up and stuff. And he said, well, where you want to work? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, what restaurant do you want to work in? I'll get you in wherever you want to work. And he goes, as a matter of fact, come down to this place tomorrow. I'll get you to talk to the chef. And so next day we're in this kitchen, and he goes, you hear that? And I said, what chef? And he goes, nobody's calling each other the N-word, F-word, this, that, and the other thing. He said, there's just some music playing. He goes, that other place, it's not always, everywhere isn't like that. And I had no idea. So I realized that I was learning what to do and what not to do from these people, and it was crazy because I was still interning at the homeless kitchen, right. And I was tearing people up. And I remember this girl told me, she goes, man, you changed. I said, what? And it kind of hit me. I'm like, damn, I'm working at the Death Star and I'm becoming a stormtrooper. Like, I was getting off on it a little bit, It was like, I kind of had to realize that's not necessary. There's other ways to teach rather than, and granted, if they wouldn't have treated me like that, I may not have gotten as far as I did, because there is a certain discipline to it. And I came up in martial arts and stuff too, so I got it, to a certain extent. The guy, I said, is this okay? And he's like, if I tell you that's okay, then you're never gonna get past that. Like, no, it's not okay. Whatever I was cutting or whatever, so, and the fear aspect of it, I hated being there, but there was a certain accomplishment of making it through a day alive and stuff. So it was just, it was a lot.
Yeah, I've been there in different environments, and that pressure was it's just an addition to the daily mess. But
it's pressuring a diamond, but at what cost?
Well, and if you live through any kind of
suicide and everything else in the restaurant industry, you know what I mean?
Right, right, yeah, and that's exactly my point. Is that it's like, what is it that's actually motivating me here? Do I just like this shit or what?
Yeah.
And furthermore, I mean, I could go philosophical all day long about this kind of shit, is what the hell it makes people take it, or what makes people behave that way. You know, I don't get it, man. You know, I look around the world today and I see everything that I ever considered to be progress in my entire life being rolled back one after the other, and it's like, oh, that's why I was here. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's that opportunity to give back that drives most of my selfishness at this point. I get frustrated because I can't go out and do the things I used to like to do, like go to meetings, and I'd call it go fishing, you know, look for that newcomer who had that hunger in their eye, and, you know, that kind of thing. And you know, I don't go out as much, and I don't have as much readily cash to where if I'm standing in line at the food store somewhere, you know, I buy a meal for that homeless guy that's sitting next to me, and, you know, he's standing at the counter counting pennies. I buy his food for him. He don't even know what happened. You know, I like to sit there and eat my burger and watch that shit, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But, you know, it's that, you know, ultimately we come into a scenario believing there's a problem or not believing there's a problem. And the way that we develop around that problem, you know, am I willing to believe there's a problem? Am I committed to fixing whatever's broken? You know, is there a solution to that problem? You know, what are the steps that I got to implement here to get the results that I need to get, and then how to go about doing it, you know? And it's very, very simple, and that's your 12 steps in a nutshell. And the way I see that is it's all human instinct. You know, we all are born to be social, to be sexual for no other reason than procreation. You know, and we want to be security. We want to have security. So, you know, we're just that touch. It touches our money. It touches all our relationships. It touches everything that we do. And if my need for that social category goes out of whack, I'll step on your toes in a heartbeat in the security aspects, you know. And that's where the imbalance happens, is in my heart, I get imbalanced, and my needs are being, you know, these needs over here are asking for more attention, or these over here asking for the attention, and these over here screaming louder saying, hey, shut that guy up over here, you know? So I just think that we tend to make it too difficult when it really is so simple. And if you're able to translate that into what's going on in your life around you and how you got here and what you have possessed, you know, what you have gained by getting here. And then the next question is, what are you going to do with it? You know? Yeah,
for sure.
You can learn all you want about chefing, and, you know, in rehab, you can learn all you want about chefing, but if you don't ever do anything with it, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, you end up like Jack with lots of itty bitty pieces of information about lots of different things, but no.
I definitely have. I had an HR lady tell me one time in Palm Springs. She said, "Looking at your resume here, it looks like you don't know what you want to be when you grow up." And I told her I want to be gainfully employed. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I've also noticed that, you know, like you were saying, all those different aspects kind of attack each other for various reasons. And it's like, I was telling somebody the other day that if I got time to complain, I'm comfortable enough that all hell's not breaking loose.
Exactly,
you know?
because
like if
I'd
I'm
be
not
doing
dialing
something
911,
otherwise.
Yeah. So if I catch myself, it's all about catching yourself too. But, so let's see. After when I found out my dad passed, my aunt had come into the restaurant I was working at, and she mentioned, you know, she just was standing there like right before dinner service, and I went over and she said, you know, I gotta tell you, your dad passed. And I think that was before my mom passed, but regardless, he was pretty young too. He was only in his 70s. So when luckily, that, like I said, that restaurant was a completely different environment. So I walked back behind the line, and this also poet, Jesse, probably like 6'4", 6'5", he was working the pizza station, and he looked down at me and he said, "What's going on?" And I said, "My dad died." And he just like grabbed me. And then I was kept walking, and each guy I came to just wouldn't let go, and they were telling me you should go home, and I said, well, I'm going to be in this mess wherever I'm at, and y'all are about to get beat up, and we're already down one person, so I'm just going to stay and get us through the rush, and then we'll move on, you know. And I think my point is that the focus had shifted from being, through this whole process, the worrying about what's going on with me, and why is this happening, and all this on these microscopic levels. Like, I remember my sponsor at the time telling me, like, God, you overanalyze crap. Everything's way more easy and way simpler than you let it be. And he was laughing at me and stuff. And I think I've kind of grasped that a little bit better, to look at a macro version of things as opposed to a micro version of things, as much as I can force myself to. And part of that program thing is immersing yourself in other people's experiences, so you're not focusing on yours so much, you know. So I don't know, I've been way more empathetic to people and things, you know, over the years now, and that's where the program really helped out, to really put that into perspective that I wasn't really paying attention to at all. And those guys being the perfect examples of that at the time, like that Chef Jesse guy. Now I think he cooks for a sorority in LA somewhere, but he also coaches little kid basketball, little kid football, and he was homeless, and he's an amazing poet, and he's a rapper, and he's a traveling chef, and, you know, sets up restaurants and all this stuff. And he always just told himself he could do it, and he's just gone and done it, you know. But I don't know, it also bouncing around, getting back to what you were saying, I definitely am understanding the living life on life's terms part of what you're talking about, because I'll see musicians that I used to play with, or things like that are out there still going at it, or I'll see people that are getting rather famous that I used to know, and I'm like, I could have, you know, whatever, but I wouldn't be where
been somebody.
Yeah, you know, I wouldn't be where I'm at, and I got a lot of those when it comes to music, but it's like, you know, so what, you know, everything's going to go in that direction at some point, and I'd rather have the experience of what I have than not have tried it or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, you got to pay for whoever's meal, and there's people that definitely don't do that and won't ever experience that, you know.
Well, and the thing about, for me, is it gets me off, man. I dig doing stuff like that, man.
Yeah.
You know, whether, and then most of the time I'd like to do it quietly. You know, I don't care. It's not for the applause. It's just,
that's an art form amongst itself, is to have the wherewithal to do it quietly. Like that takes a whole, that's level
that's
2.
Another level. Yeah.
You want to be like, hey, everyone,
You know, the thing about it is, what you're describing is exactly what the process is if you're willing to believe there's a problem, and you pursue a solution, and you get the results that are promised from that solution, then the next level of obligation is to share that with the rest of the people, so that they don't have to go through whatever you went through. It's not hard. It's not a hard philosophy. But where the through line is with every other religion or ways of thinking, and we'll put it that way, you know, there's something very Zen about practice, you know, and you make this a practice, and you make sure that every day you do this one thing or whatever it might be, and you follow that practice, and those things as a result become a part of you. And that's when it starts to click, and that's when that vision you're talking about is different. And that's when I'm able to be a lot more compassionate and empathetic. And, you know, and on a bad day, I will chew your fucking head off, you know. So I'm as human as the other, but it's the idea is that I go to that practice now when it happens, and because I know what the results are, you know,
Yeah. I've
and
got
it
a
maintains,
spiritual,
you know, it's
yeah.
just simply getting up and knowing that every day, you know, between 3 and 4, I'm going to do an hour meditation or some breathing exercises or whatever the case might be, or both. You know, those things help to keep me alive in a lot of different ways, but it also makes the change concrete and valuable and worth pursuing more because I'm getting positive results from it. And that's the reality that I think most of us miss, is we're so mired in our own BS that we can't see there's suffering around us.
Yeah.
And then when we're able to start dropping some scales a little bit from the eyeballs there, you can start to see that other people, you know, I had it bad, but, you know, let's look at the truth. I had a multi-million-dollar, you know, defense attorney dad who the only reason we didn't get along was because I rebelled at about age 8. You know, I saw all the hypocrisy and I didn't want anything to do with it. But, you know, I lived in the suburbs. I had access to money, and, you know, for up to a point, every time I got in trouble, I got out of it, you know, and no questions asked. I was supposed to be a golden child attorney, you know, and I could have done that. But I chose not to for whatever reason. And the experience I gained as a result is, as hard as it might have been, I would not trade one of my worst days ever for anything, because it would break the chain and make me who I am today. And I'm pretty okay with where I'm at today. I'm always growing, always seeking, always learning, but you know, I'm not going to fall off the planet with depression today either, you know. So
It's a good point, though. You can't really get out of your own experience or your own head without hearing somebody else's. You know, we compare things a lot and whatnot, but when you do end up hearing so many other stories and stuff that, and you hear people laugh at what happened to them or whatever, you know,
right.
fantastic or whatever it is, or you know, you hear about there was a lady in Palm Springs. She was telling her story about how she got thrown through a barroom window, and when the AA people came to her door, she threw hot water on them, and they ended up tying her up and stuff, and all this crazy shit, you know. And it's like, just some people take that as I haven't done that yet, so I'm good. But you know, other people take that as you know, just a sympathetic thing, like, oh, okay, I'm okay. You know, like I'm okay in a way where I'm still progressing. You know, other people have been through this too, not so much.
Part of that's hope for that person too, because you know it doesn't have to be that way. So that hope, you do get to a point where you realize I can only do so much, you know. And that's the sad part. That's the part I didn't like, and you know. But I found myself oftentimes working much harder than the sponsee was, you know.
Yeah. I haven't sponsored anybody in a while, but I've got.
Yeah, me either.
I see. I'm still close enough to things where it's like, I know a lot of people by name at this place, and more than what I want to know about what they're going through and the naughty or not naughty things they're doing on the side. You know? So it's still I can't. I don't have enough rope to hang.
When the guy from rehab still standing on the corner, you know that something's up.
Yeah. But
I drove to detox one time, and it was forbidden that you ever drive, you know, because I was drunk. You know, I drove and parked my car at detox one time, and I never told them my car was out there. So when I got out of detox, I hopped in my car and went and got drunk. And I purposely did that.
Yeah, I definitely stepped out of a detox and got on went straight to the bar.
Yeah. Well, when I was 15, this all started a long time ago for me. When I was 15, 16, I got diagnosed at that point with what they called alcoholic hepatitis. And it made me very sick. And they told me, you know, look, man, if you ever drink again, you're probably going to die, you know. And I went to the bar and met my friends after I left. As I left the hospital, I went straight to the bar, you know, met my buddies and celebrated the fact that I should never drink again. You know? Just insanity, you know. Yeah,
that I definitely had like 2 week stint in the hospital, and with the doctor saying like, "Oh no, how you're still alive" and whatnot. And then, well, they say ego recovers first. Sounds like yours did quickly. Sounds like yours did really quickly, but they usually say, ego recovers first. You get a little bit of health under your belt, and you're like, I won't do it as the same.
It'll be different this time.
Yeah. Nah. But
I got some fun stories from detox. There was a county-run place that I went to on a regular basis, and I met a very good friend to this day, and we used to do things like his mom was a seamstress at home, and she would make us all these funky pajama pants. So we were always like wearing these really, I can't even describe, but you get the idea, and Scooby-Doo pajamas and detox, that kind of thing.
That's awesome.
The funnest thing that we ever did was they gave us apple juice in the morning, and those little things with the foil that rips off the top.
Oh yeah.
And we would take those, and we'd kind of stash a couple back, and they did a urine test on everybody every single day. So we took our apple juice and put it in the urine specimen cup, and when we had to turn in our urine sample, we took the top off the urine cup and drank it because it was really apple juice. You should have seen the nurses, But see, that was a form of denial. I just wasn't ready at that point. I just really wasn't. I apparently thought I was on some stage that I really never was. But your family. Let's talk a little bit about the writing and how all of that gets into your words after. I mean, because when I knew you, you were kind of going through all that stuff and writing about that kind of stuff. And to be honest, I haven't been exposed to a lot of anything newer or recent because I'm so enthralled by the damn food.
It's interesting because I had kind of a hard time taking my foot off the gas in one direction to get into another one. And what gets me going again is I got to take in, kind of like with the recovery stuff, I got to take in some writers. And for me, like if I can get some voices too, like I was always really into the Kerouac recordings. Mm-hmm. If I can hear someone, how they want their stuff, how it comes out of them verbally, it helps me out a ton. So that stuff was really hard to process, and to this day, grief and whatnot, it's a lot. And I wasn't as I don't want to say flexible, but I wasn't as in shape writing wise. I couldn't just go from one to being in shape as a cook and then going over and just like writing all this cool shit down and being happy with it, So I wasn't writing every day, but a couple things that got me really doing it again, to the point where interestingly enough, in that scheme of universal things, is there's a brilliant man out here by the name of Anthony Dewan.
I know him.
Yeah, he
was BTR days. He's been around, right?
He's out in there. Yeah, he's a director out here. Does a lot of plays, and he's got a few books. And he published my first book, but we had only spoke like back and forth from the desert to Sacramento. So when I moved out here, I was like, oh shit, he lives out here too. I've run into him once. Like we some girl took me to the bar he was working at one night, and so I'm in this bar sober, seeing him for the first time ever. He published my book, and then when I got out of Mather after that year, I'm working 2 jobs. I think the Golden One Arena just went up, so all prices went up. Studio apartments were like $1,000. I'm making like $12 an hour on 2 different jobs, and so my aunt had said, "Oh, you can move in with me," and I was like, "Okay," Got God bless her. But, I'm just trying to excel, but God bless her. So I go there, and my granddad's there. He's over 90 at this point, I want to say. Anthony lived across the street, was my point. We still didn't ever, we never saw each other, I don't think, in the whole year and a half, 2 years I was living there. We'd say, oh yeah, we should talk, this and that. I talk to him more now, and I live back across town. He still lives across the street from my aunt, but anyway, I just started sending him like in the Facebook memories, something will pop up, and I'm like, oh, this is good. I'll, reread it. Haven't put it in anything, haven't published it. So I have this ongoing Yahoo Mail letter that I keep sending him pieces, and he's so busy. He's like, I'm gonna get to this. I'm gonna start editing this. I'm getting to it, and I just keep sending them. So then, as I was rereading him, it was almost like writing again. So I got back in my own voice, and I could get back to writing a bit more, and I had to start practicing a little bit more again. And the other thing that got me was, like I said, taking in different artists. So David Sedaris has been a good one recently. Just I had to find things that were going to spark something somewhere, So his stories are easy and comical, and yet really well written and stuff. And I had a segue with Jack Grisham.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so going from the crazy musician person, alcoholic addict person, to recovery guy that I admired in the whole shell of things, that he has a book. Have you read his recovery book?
I have not.
He's got a principle guide to the 12 steps or something like that. And it's just him talking about his idea of what all this looks like. It's not AA, man, whatever, but it's really good. And when I read it, I needed that shit, because I needed like a cool Afonso version of recovery. And I used to be this musician that had a pregnant.
I'm sure he appreciated that Afonso version.
Stuff, Yeah, like how you were saying, you're not getting out much, this and that. I started combing YouTube for stuff, and that's when I found Bob D and Chris Raymer and these, I wouldn't even say cool kids, but just like the super friends of speakers on AA, and NA. These, I'll send you some links, but like legendary meetings or speakers. And so when I found out Jack was in recovery, below his anonymity all over the place, whatever, I'm sure that's not a thing, but
he talks about it every day.
Yeah, I listened to one of his, and I was like, holy shit, this is me, this is my thing, this is it. This guy was in the punk rock band and did all the things and whatnot. This is great. So my point was, I started kind of leaning into writers like that, I had to get back to my roots, so to speak.
Right.
So I started reading, and this isn't too far back. I started reading some of Jack's books. Patrick O'Neill.
Yeah.
Love Patrick O'Neill. Also in recovery, but he came up throughout the punk scene. And a funny story, I thought he had a third book, I want to say. So I'm messaging him, and I said, oh, I'm about to get this other book. And he said, oh no, that's just a couple chapters from the one, but it's in French or something. He said, don't order it. You'll just get like 2 chapters from the book you just read, but in French. Gun Needle Spoon. Yeah, he's a great writer.
Gun Needle Spoon is the one that rings a bell the most. Yeah,
he's great. Another one's Anarchy at Circle K.
How do you go wrong with that title?
Plus, he's like a roadie for the Sex Pistols and Dead Kennedys, or not Sex Pistols, but Dead Kennedys and whatnot. Yeah, it's just great stories. And now I'm reading.
Well, he and I were at least in the same room at some point.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Michael Marcus.
Yeah.
Number One Son. That's what I'm going through right now, but. that was kind of like I'm saying, it's like a gateway drug book wise to get me back into the swing of things. But once I can get in that narrative, I can kind of almost copy it in my version of my accounts, you know.
Right.
The other thing I'm reading right now is the Over story. Have you heard of it? Good grief. I think it's a Pulitzer Prize winning.
Say the name again.
The Over story.
No, I don't know anything about it.
And
Man.
it's big and it's ridiculous. It sounds silly. It's about trees.
Right.
And these people's lives and how they intertwine with these trees over different generations and stuff. Richard Powers, I think, is the writer. Yeah, you'll have to look into it. It's heavy.
Will definitely.
Really good. But, the segue to that comes from because I'd been always wanting to keep putting out new material, like I said, but the Facebook memories were something that would show me that I could do it every so often. Every few days, one would pop up that was decent. You know, some of them were crap and drunk crap, but you know, some would pop up and be like, damn, this is actually good. I wrote that, you know? So I had a friend that turned me on to that Over story and a lot of other really good books and stuff. A lot of really good music. I started sending her some of these. I copy paste some of these poems. Oh, you write, you know, send me something. And then she started, damn, like send me more, like these are good, you know. And I think I needed, beside myself, I needed a receiver for the football, you know.
Yeah.
And this angel that has been not necessarily amused, but like has been I don't know, man, it's just weird. It's like the universe does what it's supposed to do, but like Madonna said, you know, you gotta, she plays in front of 100,000 people. If one doesn't like it, she wants to talk to them, you know. The opposite of that is this one person that understands my writing. She's saying, I'll send a poem to this chick. She's in Montreal, and she'll respond to it. And I'm like, yeah, that's what that means. Like, wow. You know, it's kind of like when somebody writes a blurb for your book or whatever, like she gets it. So that got me going again. Basically, is this long-winded, drawn-out point is that I was sending stuff, copy pasting in this Signal chat, and then I ended up picking the pen back up. You know, because the stew of what I'm saying is I was reading things. I had this person reading my stuff, and all of it came together to where I actually have some new material.
Well, you know, I think that you're at the beginning, you're uncertain. You start to try, you throw it out there, and it gets received. And so I know from my perspective, I never put the quality or the value on my own work. Like I never went out there and tried to pursue shows, or I never went out there or really cared about marketing a book or putting together a book. I have stories I want to tell, and they may end up in some flowery version. But the truth of the matter is, to put those things in order, you know, I mean, my writing started in journals from psychotherapy, you know what I'm saying? And documenting events and things that happened. And those things got pared down into, you know, shorter versions of the story or the message or the meaning. And it may be a poem, it might be a story or whatever, but, you know, a lot of people don't come from that perspective, you know, and you're catching it on the front side, but it's you need to have a mentor and you got to have cheerleaders.
Yeah.
And because I didn't take the chance, I didn't end up with a lot of cheerleaders, you know. And there was a few that would read and critique and, you know, offer to help, but it would get to a certain point where I'd get frustrated, they would get frustrated, and I would just let it sit. And every time I pick up something I'd already written and probably rewritten several times, you know, I change this, I change that, and one day it looks right, you know, and I'll put it out there for whatever that means in my own way.
I dig that though, because it's like, it doesn't have, like, there's so many aspects to what makes up all this stuff, but it doesn't have to be the be all end all of everything. You know, it's
right.
If you're comfortable with what you're doing, you find those, you know, you'll have your cheerleader and this and that, but I remember when we were in Palm Springs, we had an artist collective that would come together to talk about how to market and what they were going to do with their art. There were sculptors and painters and a bunch of different stuff, and everybody would kind of brainstorm on what in the world you do once you have art, you know. Like, what are we supposed to do with this shit? Because obviously we all, you and I, in our artistic lives, have come up in the interwebs thing, and like musically for me, I see kids these days banging on their drums on the TikTok and getting a bajillion views and stuff, and I was like, man, if I would have had that back when I was growing up, like, I'd be rich. Like, this is ridiculous. Or, you know, so the like branding and marketing and all that stuff is just a whole different ball game, you know. So let alone just doing the art for, like I'm saying, the art for your own satisfaction, or a cheerleader, or, you know, a muse, or whatever in the world's going on. There's just so much involved.
Well, you know, Chris, I consider myself to be somewhat mission focused, and that's, you know, this podcast and everything that's associated, like the membership community and the ability to buy art and, you know, things through that community. That's why it exists. I mean, you know, that became my new mission at some point, was I realized I'd been learning all these skills, and I had all these valuable words that I wanted, and I had all these friends that were just, you know, genius writers and were putting stuff out, and you know, but here's the secret. You know, I wanted to create a place where the banned books never get banned, and you can always find them, and you can find the classics, you know, whatever you might be looking for, from Kerouac to whoever, and then also you know, a library of people you may not have been exposed to, like Christian Alvarez, or, you know, even, you know, S.A. Griffin or John Dorsey or Jack Grisham or anybody else you can come up with. You know, there are infinite worlds out there who don't know who those people are, and they like to read, you know, so, you know, there's a spot for that as well. So everybody's getting a little bit of extra promotion, a little bit more, you know, eyeball space for what it's worth.
Here.
And so, you know, that's kind of become my mission, is to build that. And if I can do it the way I want to, I don't have to have a lot of money. I don't have to, you know, rape my audience to do that, because I've got agreements, Chris, with different companies already that I would be self-sustaining if I had enough eyeballs that people would buy some shit once in a while. You know, You've seen my merch. I mean, I've been making merch since you and I met, you know, and I mean, I've got tons of stuff that, you know, some of it's good, some of it's not, but you know, it's all available through the same place. And you know, if you're there and you're liking what we're doing, then buy some merch, because that supports us, and I don't have to go to, you know, Christian and say, hey, Christian, you want to do a podcast? It's only $20, you know.
Right.
You know, so I think that's the key, that these communities are the cheerleaders, they are the mentors, and the audience are those who haven't been exposed to that. And people like me and you happen to have stories to tell that are intriguing enough to get people to listen. And, you know, I see my stories and writing at this point somewhat shamefully, as a marketing tool, because the better I am, the more likely people are to go and see what I'm up to. And if they're coming to see what I'm up to, they're going to see Christian. They're going to see, Wesley Heine, who I met yesterday, which, by the way, if you don't know Wesley, you should read his stuff. There's one, I'll send you a link to it. It's about busking on the streets of Chicago, driving a cabbie, being a cabbie in Chicago. And the podcast will be out sometime today, so you can check that out and get a little preview if you want. But I would suggest you read his stuff. He's awesome. But we've got this community, and I think that it's not being maximized, and I appreciate people like you being able to help me do that. Because, shit, man, I mean, we've been friends for a long time, and we have actually been through a lot together separately. And, everybody has those experiences if they choose to see them and go for them. And I'm proud to be your friend, man. And, I hold you in extremely high regard. And behind your back, I say, hey, I know this guy that was a drummer with Saul Williams.
Yeah, that's for sure. Man.
Let's talk about that. What's going on in the world of music for you? I mean, I talk about the history however much you want, but what are you doing about it these days?
That was that was an interesting thing to begin with. I remember being a big, Kerouac, Burroughs, whatever fan, and Death Poetry being on HBO. I think I got the DVDs and just watched those constantly for a little while to, again, get that voice and kind of try and rip it off, so to speak, or get influenced by it or whatever.
Yeah, that was the early days of slam, man.
And you find the cool things and you try to wear them, So doing that, and I was living in Arizona with this electric violinist, Heidi, and we had a little recording studio and whatnot. So Saul had put out this book with a CD with it, and it had an a cappella CD. The CD was a cappella versions of him reading some of the book. The book was entitled She, but it was an S with not divided by, but whatever. I don't do math anymore.
Oh,
anyway,
the two dots, yeah.
So anyway, he so we took that CD and he's obviously extremely rhythmic, so we used his acapella and we put a beat behind it, recorded a beat behind it. So the next thing you know, he's doing a book signing in Tucson, which was like an hour and a half away. So we hopped in the truck, ran down there, and it was at this was like 2003, 2004. He's doing an LGBT book signing thing. So we show up there. We think it's going to be this huge event. There's literally like 6 chairs in a circle. So we walk in this bookstore and we're sitting there, and I've got this disc, and he comes in and sits right next to me, and I'm like, oh my God, Saul Williams is right here. Oh my God. And he reads some stuff. And
became a cheerleader.
Yeah, I'm like, holy shit. He reads some things and he talks to people and whatnot. And then the thing ends, and I'm still sitting there, and I said, hey, we made this for you. And he goes, oh, neat. What is it? I said, well, it's you with us. We put a beat on here. And he goes, oh, really? Wow, you guys did this? He goes, what's it like? And I said, well, just listen to it, man. And he was playing with the band Cursive that night in Tucson at the Rialto. And so he got package delivered, here we go. And he's standing up, and I hear him saying like he wants to he needs to get a ride to his hotel. And we're still in this bookstore, and there's this one guy looking at him like he wants to say something to him. He's just staring at him, and he wants to say like, I'll take you or whatever. And Heidi and I are right next to him, and he's on the phone, and I think, he might be calling a cab. This is like pre-interwebs and whatnot. He might be calling a cab. I said, hey, you need to ride to your hotel? And he goes, oh, yeah. And that guy is like, shit, you know, the other guy, yeah. So he goes, yeah. So we throw him in the truck, take him back to his hotel. He changes whatever, he takes us to dinner. Then we're talking about music, and he said, I'll listen to this, but you guys, what do you do and whatnot? And we told him violin, drums, this, that, the other thing. And we stood on the sidelines and watched him do spoken word before Cursive went on to a bajillion people, and it was amazing. We went back to his hotel that night, and he played us his forthcoming album with Surge from Systems of a Down, and I forget who else is on that damn album, like 9 Inch Nails or something. But anyway, he said, can you guys do this? And we're like, yeah. He said, cool, well, you can be my band then, and we'll get a bass player or whatever. Right on, you know. So then we're driving home from Tucson screaming out the windows, oh my God, not knowing whether he'd call or not, you know, whatever. And then 2 weeks later, he sent an email. Like, hey, you guys still want to come down to Laurel Canyon and rehearse? We're like, yeah. So we ended up touring with him and meeting a bunch of people and playing in front of a bunch of crazy people. And pre-internet though, like barely internet. Right. There's a little bit of it online, you know, but just missed it. So like,
well, you know, I mean, I think that the joy really lies in the exposure. I mean, you know, the experience, and then the memory. I mean, you know, you weren't that close. You were right in the fucking middle of it, you know.
Oh, for sure.
What it was. And I have to learn how to appreciate those moments as what they are and not what they could have been or should have been. And I'm the worst at that.
That's for sure.
Are you getting up to go? Are you walking somewhere?
I'm relocating. Am I relocating? I'm trying to relocate. No, hold on a sec. No, I absolutely agree. There we go.
So other than that one experience, though, I mean, you've had some other experiences with the music world. Is that something that's always been parallel to your writing? And I want to talk about the chefing as well, but is that just always present?
Parallel to the writing?
Yeah.
It's all the same thing. Just words or hands or food.
That makes me very happy in your response, because I really hate labels, you know, and so to try to define it as one or the other, that was the perfect answer. It's all the same thing. It's the same components of my brain working. It's the same rhythm in my heart working. It's, you know, it really is the same. So
it is really all just love, whatever, you know.
Right. It really is, and then you can label it however you want. That's what I think sometimes where the problem gets in. You know, I mean, that's something I learned from my sponsor a long time ago, is that, you know, what you think about me or how you feel about me is none of my business, you know. It's like, and at the same time, I can give experience, I can take it, you know, or I could just let it be, you know, one way or the other. But I save myself trouble that way, you know. Yeah. I don't know, man. So we've gone, you know, through the world of writing, and I'll put links to all the stuff that you have out there in the podcast, but in the description. I am intrigued, Christian, with your cooking, man. I mean, the pictures of yourself on Instagram, and it's just, I mean, I come from a background where I did appreciate good food, and I know a little bit about it, and if I wasn't so scared of knives, I'd probably be a chef myself.
That'd be great.
with slightly more coordination, I'd probably do well, but I don't trust myself with a knife. So, but I do want to hear about, you know, it feels to me like that's a future goal for you.
It's kind of a full circle with the whole, like when I mentioned when I got to Palm Springs and I couldn't play music, I started writing. When I got to Sacramento,
and even writing became a challenge. What option was there slightly artistic that I could make money at and have some security and whatnot? So, and in the recovery sense, help people and things. Just feel without ingesting.
Right.
So, service industry.
Yeah.
So it just all like made sense. There's art involved. There was that athleticism to it. The like I said, the buttheads that were raging in their own rock star world, because all this shit collides at this point. Sacramento has the farm to fork capital, city of trees. The chefs out here are on a completely different level. The day I walked into rehab, I grabbed a local magazine thing, and it was this chef out here with Shock G, R.I.P. They were doing a pop-up collabo, pop-up dinner, and I remember that just striking me as, oh, this hip-hop artist, technically poet, is working with this chef, and they're doing a one-night-only, almost spoken food thing,
Right.
I just coined a term there. I don't know how that's going to work, but whatever. But
we'll put a trademark in the
coming soon.
We got it on film, buddy. We got it on film. We're safe.
Yeah, perfect.
Unfortunately, I own it now, so.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, but yeah. So it was a trip because, it was another batch of cool kids for me to chase around, whatever. But at the same time, I was like, man, these guys are really doing this thing, And I ended up working. That was one of the guys that technically called me N-word, F-words, this, that, and the other thing. Was this guy who's at the top of his game, but doing things in his life too that he needed. It's rock stars.
Yeah.
So I got to be immersed in that for a while, and so everything held hands is what I'm getting at. The food, the people, the art, the creativity, the rock star crap, the whole thing. But I luckily got to see it from a recovered standpoint, because at one point, one of the restaurants I was working in, it was a Friday afternoon, and I hadn't moved over to saute yet. I'd been doing it at lunch, but it was about to be a Friday night. I was about to be cooking for a bajillion people, sauteing. I was terrified. And our saute guy, he had externed in Spain. He's like prodigy, I'm 40 something. This guy's like 20 whatever. And just, I wish I could cook like him, right? He's teaching me all this shit. And he's this kid just teaching me all this shit. He's, like I said, been to Spain, just golden child. Comfortable as anything in this kitchen. I just want to be this dude, trying to just make it through the day. No one's yelling at me anymore. Whatever. So we're about to go Friday night dinner, and he comes to me and he goes, man, my baby mom is saying this, that, and the other thing, that I'm not doing enough, blah, blah. I'm going to go tell her. And I says, baby mom is telling you you're not doing enough, so you're going to leave work to go talk to her about it? He's like, yeah. He leaves. Now I have to saute. Shit. So I was learning it, but now I have to do it. I immediately grab a hot pan and burn my hand. Great idea. And my point was the chef that at the time, Mike Stornello, he was the first. He was at a very interesting point in my career food-wise, because he was the first chef that what do they call it when you break the bubble between you and the crowd? You know, it's the same kind of thing. Like he would tell me.
Here's the veil.
Yeah, he would tell me what he was thinking. He would emote that. He wouldn't just like He would tell me why he was freaking out and stuff. You know, it wasn't just all calm, cool, yell at you stuff. He would say, well, I'm dealing with this, I'm dealing with that. And I really got a better emotional view of what was going on. So he was a good teacher in that regard. And he was a great person, brilliant dude. Anyway, this guy leaves, the kid leaves to go deal with his personal drama. And I'm freaking out because I got to do this job. And the head chef, he says, he goes, well, you know, you might have only been cooking for this long, a couple, like months or whatever, he said, and these guys might have been, I forget how I put it. I think he's like, sure, you're 40 something and you're doing this, and they've been cooking since they're 17 or whatever. He said, but you've lived all the life part of it. Like, you're not doing coke in the bathroom. Right. You're not leaving your job on Friday when you're needed to go talk to your baby mama. You know, he said, you did all that crap. All you got to do is learn to coke. Right. I was like,
that's very true, though. And I think about my own life and think about that. And it really is. It's, all these things that we've talked about, these different arts and, tools that the heavens have given us and how we've used those things. I mean, they're intertwined. It's all one thread. It's all wound together. I mean, it's just like you said. It's all the same. Mm-hmm. In that they're all bonded together, and your packet of family might be bigger than my packet of family, so you have to make adjustments. My packet of self-pity might be bigger than yours is, so I need a little bit of extra there. And as those pieces of the fluid puzzle are tightened together, the whole machine operates better, and machine being the world, in a grand scale. But for people like me and you, it creates that rhythm and that interrelation with the people and the world itself. That's just, I've always believed that we are racing back towards the way we were when we were born, naturally unscathed, running by natural God-given instincts, as opposed to, reacting to whatever the trauma is of the day, And if I can learn to think that way and roll it back in my thinking, and that pulls the threads tighter, and all those threads come together and makes a tighter, more efficient machine that is able to pay more attention to what's going on out here as well, for whether it's other people or other perspectives or other ways that people think, being able to be compassionate and empathetic to the way and see suffering that no matter how it compares to my own is worthy of some repair. And if I have a tool, I should share that tool. It's just that simple. And it's a beautiful thing, Chris. I like a lot of people, but I feel drawn to you. I felt drawn to you from the very beginning, even when we were both in pretty bad shape. Because at the time, I was very, very sick with what I was dealing with, only I didn't know at that time. So I was somewhere wackadoo and could have been perceived as drunk as anybody else that was going through those days. But I wasn't. I was just not seeing clearly because my body was affecting my perspective on things.
Yeah, that whole Blog Talk group was rather passionate.
Yeah, well, we were, and the thing that blew it up for me was just a ridiculous thing that we could cover elsewhere. But Diana Rose and Metro and all the shit that was going on there. I mean, I don't even want to go into the details, but and it was all about whose turn was it to pay for the Blog Talk, and I had paid it 2 months in a row, so that's kind of where the whole argument started, and that's why I bailed out. It continued on, but it served its purpose. It proved to me what community really was in that space, because otherwise, I mean, I only found it because I was wandering aimlessly, you know, sick, basically. You know. Oh, see, I didn't know it either, Chris. I mean, I was, you know, that was the thing. I didn't know. I was having cognitive shit going on, and I was somewhat paranoid and more angry, and it was all a buildup of byproducts in my body from the bad old days that just, you know, resurface. And, you know, you get too much ammonia in your body and you're going to act crazy, you know, and that was in essence what it was. You know, that's all been cleared up, and I see things a lot more clearly on most days. And,
what type of, do you seek out specific medical intervention for that? Or what, how did you wind up in that?
I mentioned that when I was 16, I mentioned the story about when I was 16, I went out, you know, I got diagnosed with alcoholic hepatitis. So that was my first brush with liver damage. And then I treated it way worse after that. You know, that's when the dope came in and copious amounts of dope, you know, and on top of all the drinking I was doing and the lifestyle I was living and running from the police all the time and, you know, trying to be somebody in the world that I was rolling around in, and, you know, all this kind of stuff. But it was 9 years before I really started showing any symptoms from that after I got sober. So, you know, the period during Blog Talk was when I was really feeling it the most and getting to the point where I was starting to have results in my life that warranted being investigated. Because I wasn't acting the way I would have acted. I was reacting to friends in a different way than I would have. I was extremely paranoid, and those things kind of drove me. And it you know, liver damage will cause a buildup of, because it doesn't process properly, it causes a buildup of ammonia in the body, and that gets to my brain, and I get, you know, somewhat confused at that point. And it's all medicated now, so I mean, it's not an issue these days. But I was so blind back then that I had no idea what was going on.
Oh, how would you? That's why I was asking, like, how would you?
Yeah, and if you remember, you know, the fluid buildup from that, I gained. I mean, you see me today, I'm like 190. You know, I was 313 pounds, dude. When we were doing Blog Talk, I was over 300 pounds, and it was nothing more than fluid that had been building up in my body. Yet I still didn't get it. You know, I thought it was because I drank too much milk and ate too many cookies, you know, or whatever, and didn't really attribute it to where it belonged. Because as an addiction counselor, every year I had things checked, and the doctors had told me that because of the experiences I had younger with my liver, that my liver profiles were always going to show elevated. You know, they were doing tests for HIV and Hep C and stuff as when I was an addiction counselor. And as a counselor, you had to have those tests done every so often. You know, it was, I mean, that's the way the world was at that point. But so I knew what my condition was, but I was told it was normal because of the damage I had done earlier. And that wasn't the case. It was actually getting much, much worse. And I didn't know it, you know, at that point. And then once I figured it out, then, you know, I went through the treatment I needed to go through. And then because of the mechanics of the issues I was dealing with, I was very highly prone to relapse. And that's where the denial part came in. Now, again, keep in mind, I'm sober all this time. The denial was pretty strong, and I just ignored what was going on. Although I knew the treatment had been successful and it was prone to relapse, I ignored it. I just didn't go to the doctor. You know, I didn't want to know. I felt like I would be better off if I didn't know. And from all the other experience I had, I you know, in my head, I knew better. I just didn't, I was scared. I didn't want to know.
Yeah.
And I had been through a divorce about that time, and it was just too much. I didn't want to, you know, be in that spot and have to deal with all this shit and sleep on my mom's floor in the fucking process, you know. It was a lot. So I fought some battles, but, you know, I don't, damn or concern myself with all of that. I see it as my purpose hasn't been met because I'm still here, you know. And so as long as I'm seeking and working and, you know, looking for those opportunities and, you know, taking care of my temple in the way that I'm supposed to with, you know, I use a lot of plant medicines and things like that, in conjunction with the poison that I have to take. You know, but there are things that are required, like in order for me to continue to have that, you know, to continue to block the fluid buildup, there's certain medications I need to take, or I need to take others to flush them out once I see it happening, you know, things like that. So, you know, we all fight our demons, and they all end up sometimes ironically where we don't expect them to be. And they end up right in the middle of experiences we thought were over or that we were done with. And I'm able to look back now and see that a lot of decisions I made in my marriage and whatnot were clearly based on the fact that my brain was crazy, and I didn't know it, you know. And I blamed it on a lot of other things that were very present, but they had nothing to do with the fact that my body was lying to me, you know. So it's that thread, man. You got to tie all those things together, and then, you know, when you got it working right, you know, you got to use it like a weapon sometimes, and other times it's just in your toolkit waiting to be used. My job is to look for the chance to be of opportunity, of service, and, you know, look for those opportunities, whether it's an individual or a group or a community. Or I just got to keep a dog walking down the street, whatever it is. I have to keep my eyes peeled for that. And that's what comes with the practice is, you know, the vision that I'm able to see with is different today than it was, you know. Instead of you being an asshole, maybe you're having a bad day today, and I need to respect that, you know, and offer to be of help instead of cussing you out because you know, made me uncomfortable somehow.
No, I know that one. I got that.
Not that I'm any good at it.
where I work, you know, there'll be people pent up in their mess until I ask them how they're doing at dinner. Hey, how you doing today? And I think, geez, or they'll crap on the food or whatever it is. And I had to tell myself, you know, you asked, it's not personal. You know, you have no idea what anybody's going through. You know, it's basic stuff, but you know, you gotta.
Well, and my problem's always been when they say nothing, I ignore that, and I prompt, you know, and that's a problem for me sometimes because that takes me out of listening, you know. I'm trying to force the issue so I can be right in on my white horse and save the day, you know. And, you know, that's truth about me. I want to be a savior of some sort because I felt like a failure all my life, you know.
That's the thing. I fall in that category for sure.
Well, that's okay. You know, there's somebody out there for us, Chris. You know, both of us have been very blessed with a very supportive network of people and opportunities that pop up. And, you know, when the sign is flashing red, you're supposed to pay attention. And I think that if you got your eyes open, you'll see those opportunities. And I think that's one of the things that's actually drawn me to you all the time is that you see what's there without much fog, you know, and act on it. And that's the important thing that I think gets left out of the mix is I can know everything I need to know about whatever. But if I don't put it to use, it's worthless. You know, it's waiting to answer a question on Jeopardy, you know. That's all it is.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that we end up not only that savior mentality, but like wanting to just the proactive, non-foggy thing that you're talking about is so prevalent once you get out of the grips of everything in the past. You know, it's like now I got to do all this stuff and figure all this crap out and get all this.
Well, and then add to it the fact that you've got a life-threatening diagnosis. Okay,
Yeah.
you think the clock don't get louder in your head at that point?
Yeah.
And
I try to. Life is a life-threatening diagnosis, but I'm not.
No, but you're exactly right, and that's the way I have to perceive it, or I'll just forget. You know, I'm waiting to die instead of living today, and I just don't choose to do that. You know, I'm not able to make that vision real the way I would like to because of finances and whatever else.
This thing's going to jump in the way of most stuff to begin with. Yeah.
Exactly, and that's the thing is that gets its daily attention, and everything else is getting the attention. I'm doing what I need to do. I can always feel good in that, and whatever's left in the end, will be left in the end. I don't, you know, there are things I'd like to do, but if I don't get them done, I haven't gotten them done yet, and I haven't missed a damn thing. So, you know, that doesn't mean I wouldn't like to come hang out with Christian, you know, one weekend. You know, it doesn't mean I want to go to, you know, I want to go to the West Coast and hang out with Razor and Iris and, you know, SA and people like that, you know. So, and that's, you know, to be honest, that's kind of one of my goals at this point. We can get the show up and running, then I can get some money coming in where I can just hop on a Greyhound and go. Say, hey, I'm coming to New Orleans, you know, hey, I'm coming to Ohio, John Dorsey, you know, hey, I'm coming to LA, you know, hey, I'm coming to Oakland, Paul.
Yeah.
You know, and that's been the beauty of all this is I wouldn't know any of those people that haven't been for Blog Talk.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
You know?
And then I forget how else all that worked out. I mean, Facebook and stuff, but yeah, all that just carried over and whatnot. Like meeting, well, just all a good foundation of people, you know.
Well, and
I ended up getting to go to Beyond Baroque with Alicia Young, and that was when I got to meet SA and
Modiano.
The whole pile.
Yeah. There's too many to even try to come up with.
Yeah, I'm looking for one specifically that passed away. I can't remember what his name is. Oh, Danny, yeah. Dan Baker.
Yeah. Danny was a special breed, man.
Yeah.
You know, there are those guys like Danny, you know, Eduardo, Jimmy. You know, there are those we've been blessed to know too, you know. David Parham, I read his shit on a regular basis, you know. You know, he's one of those that if a note or a poem popped up, I just copied and pasted it. You know, sometimes before I even read it, you know.
Yeah, he was very subtle in my world, like just a little comment here and there over the years, and then I thought, God, this guy's smart, you know, and just weird and cool, and then one day, boop.
Yeah, he had come to visit me here in Florida.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was on a road trip doing it with his business, and
cool.
he stopped by and we hung out and had dinner, and you know, smoked a joint or whatever, and it was I'm just really, really grateful I had the chance to do that before he was. You know, I mean, his story is just a trip, man. I mean, like after Katrina, the gangs took over his house and dealt crack out of his house, and he just lived there and, you know, got strung out. They basically took over his house, you know, and he's living with all the crack dealers in his house, you know, getting strung out and writing. He had a closet full of journals that he was leaving behind, and I mean, to this day, I don't really know what happened to him, and I never saw him, but you know, he kind of had a similar idea that leaving it behind for the kids, you know. But I don't know that they were really. I can't recall that he had kids. But he did.
Yeah, I don't know.
He get married though.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I imagine that's where all that went, and we may see it one day. You know, wouldn't surprise me. But I've tried to get together a show that would talk about Danny Baker. I've tried to do one about Jimmy. And, you know, David would be a natural, you know. what's their name? Mad, what you call it in Texas and New Orleans, they would do it in a heartbeat, you know.
Oh yeah, Mad Swirl or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Mad Swirl, yeah, that's it. They would do it in a heartbeat. So, you know, those ideas are still out there. But, you know, man, you're a soldier, man. You're a fucking warrior, and I'm so glad to spend time with you. And I hope that we can do this personally a lot more. I don't even know how to express to the audience how important it is that you go and seek out this work. Go and visit Christian's Instagram. I'll put a link to that as well. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Christian, before we close it up?
I just would like to just say that I hope everybody in the LA area is hanging in there. And Altadena and everybody. I have a really good friend there that used to come on Blog Talk and stuff too. My friend Casey, she was displaced for a hot minute. Home didn't burn down, but also in the restaurant industry, taking care of a lot of people and feeding first responders and stuff. And it's interesting because as soon as, right when all that went down, we have a big cafeteria and dining hall and kitchen and everything that I serve out of, and part of the facade out front fell off, so they decided that they were going to condemn the building just in case the rest was going to come down on the beds. So we've been cooking out of this. We go to another location, this teeny kitchen, and make the few hundred meals that we bring back every day, and then we have to serve them out of this like activity room that's on the family side for these kids. So it's just been a mess. But as soon as everybody started getting displaced, like all heck broke loose in my world too. Like I was feeling like my life was being sympathetic to everybody else. I was like, dude. Anyway, just hoping that those everybody down there is picking up the pieces. And seems like it's at least getting better for a little bit, but anything like that, like you mentioned Katrina, and I remember right after Katrina, I was living in Arizona, and we had a bunch of people come over from New Orleans. I actually got to play with the Trumay Brass Band because of that. I got to play snare for them because they just happened to roll in town. But man, it's just, I saw a video yesterday. The guy said, okay, we're in February. Everybody just don't touch anything. We're just gonna get in and get out. Nobody go outside. We're just gonna chill. Hopefully the rest of the year goes well.
I can only, fire is like one of my biggest fears, so I can't even imagine having to deal with that. I'll sit here in my trailer through a hurricane in a heartbeat, but don't put me anywhere near fire, man.
Yeah, you definitely got weather over there.
Huh?
You definitely get weather.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, anything on the newly appointed Gulf of America, apparently we are a big target for those storms. When I first moved here the first time, it was pre-Katrina, and Katrina was supposed to hit us, and it missed us. It went straight to New Orleans. But even the damage that happened here was horrible. I had 3 days with power out, and I was living in a nice house in a nice place, and there was enough water that I couldn't even leave my house for 3 or 4 days, really, because I couldn't, it was too deep, So anyway, so that was an interesting time, but you got to see a lot about humanity at that point too. People were people maintained their drinking and drugging quite well during that time. So
I used to always wonder about that when I was in, when I was walking to the store every day to buy vodka and stuff. I was like, what if earthquake or something happened? Like, that's probably the first place I'd have to go,
Right. Yeah, that's in Georgia growing up, it used to be the liquor stores were always closed on Sunday. So you had to stock up before midnight on Saturday for whatever you're going to drink tomorrow. And then, of course, it never made it till tomorrow. So then you had to have cocaine. So
Yeah, it's horrible.
well, by the time you needed the cocaine, actually, the liquor stores were open again. So
Hopefully, yeah.
all right, my brother. Well, those days are gone, man. And I like where we're at, man. It's such a pleasure to see you. Hang tight. I'm going to say goodbye, and then you and I'll say goodbye as well. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for this afternoon visit with Christian. And I hope that you guys enjoyed it and that you'll pursue his work, go through his Instagram and look at the beautiful food that he's making, and pay attention to the words, because there's definitely some knowledge in there as well as entertainment. And I'll put links to everything I possibly can in the description, along with a bio and whatever other stuff I can make up and say nice about Christian. And with that, I appreciate you guys being here. We will look forward to seeing you again later in the week. I got 2 or 3 more scheduled this week, so we're pumping them out as fast as we can. Stay tuned, like, subscribe, do all that stuff, and come by and join the community. It is at buymeacoffee.com/socialyetdistanced. Go there and join. It's a Patreon-styled site. However, I'm not ever going to exclude anybody for any reason, especially money. So if you have a need and you want to be a part of the family, please just send me a direct message, and I will make sure that happens for you. Include your email, and we'll get you on the list, and you'll get notified when we do new publishings, new videos, new blog posts, whatever the case might be. You'll be included and notified immediately. Plus, you'll get some discounts on different products and services that we've made arrangements with to help you in your life as well. They're all consciously chosen, and relationships are massaged gently so that we make a little bit of money, you guys make a good deal, and everybody wins in the process. So come and visit. Thanks for coming and hanging out today, and we will talk to you guys much, much later on. Thanks, and be well.